Are you setting an internal audit function but are not sure how to do it? Or your internal audit function is not effective or does not add value to the organization? What to do? I have a solution for you. Consider Ippf. Understand Ippf. What is Ippf? How does it help in establishing an effective internal audit function? Or how does it provide mandatory guidance or recommended guidance for the internal audit activity? How quality assurance and improvement program helps you in understanding where do you stand as an internal audit function, and how comprehensively the standards guide you on how to do your job as an internal auditor. We'll get all these answers in this video. So the first question is, what is Ippf? Ippf stands for International Professional Practices Framework. This is a framework by IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, for the effectiveness of internal audit activity. This is a conceptual framework which provides the authoritative guidance on the internal audit activity and function, and provides, actually it's split into two, which is the mandatory guidance and the recommended guidance. The updated Ippf can be downloaded from the IIA website. If you are a member, I'll give the link here and you can go and have a look. To start with, the most important part of Ippf is mission of internal audit. Why do we need a mission? The mission of internal audit depicts what the internal audit wants to achieve. IIA has drafted a very clear, concise mission of internal audit, which says that the mission of internal audit is to enhance and protect the organizational value, not the internal audit value, the organizational value. How? By providing a risk-based and objective assurance, advice and insight. Whatever internal audit is doing, this is the focal point. When applying Ippf, internal audit activity has to keep always the mission of internal audit in their mind. The guidance provided by Ippf split into two: the mandatory guidance and the recommended guidance. The mandatory guidance include the core principles, the definition of internal audit, number 3, code of ethics, and number 4, the standards. So we discussed the mandatory guidance and the recommended guidance, the split of that. So the first and most important part of mandatory guidance is the core principles. The core principles provides the basic outline of setting up an effective internal audit activity. We'll keep one thing in mind, that mission is always our focal point, whatever we are doing. But for core principles, they should be present and operating effectively all the time. What are these core principles? I'll read out for you. Demonstrate integrity. Integrity is very important. Honesty and integrity is always. Demonstrate competence and due professional care. You need to know what you are doing. Is objective and free from undue influence. This is called independence. Align with the strategies, objectives, and risk of the organization. If you don't align this, how you can add value to the organization? Is appropriately positioned and adequately resourced. So resources are always very important as well. Demonstrate quality and continuous improvement. Learning never stops. Communicates effectively. Again, very important point. You need to communicate in many ways, whether it's your audit report, whether the method of doing things, whether the role of internal audit, marketing the function of internal audit. You need to communicate. Provide risk-based assurance. Is insightful, proactive, and future-focused. Means you need to adopt technology, need to keep progressing, need to adopt new practices. Promotes organizational improvement. Again, our mission we should not forget. So the second component of mandatory guidance of IPPF is the definition of internal audit. The definition of internal audit actually provides the basic purpose, the nature, and the scope of the internal audit. So let's read out the definition and break it down for better understanding. So internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objective by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process. So you may link the definition of internal audit with the mission of internal audit and the core principles. The important elements of the definition are, if you break it down, are the number one is the independent, objective assurance and consulting activity. So what type of activity is? We are providing assurance. We are providing an objective assurance. We have to be independent. Okay, and this is the last part is we have to be an advisor and consultant. We are providing insight. Designed to add value and improve an organization's operation. Again, go back to the mission of internal audit, the basic purpose, to add value, protect value for the organization. Helps an organization achieving an objective. I mean, like it's self-explanatory. Means internal audit does not work in isolation. For example, if you are as a chief audit executive developing a risk-based audit plan, you cannot develop it in isolation. You need to have the organization's objective in hand. You need to know in detail what is the business plan, and on the basis of that you can assess the potential risk. You can sit with the risk management and understand what key risk areas they are assessing and which you need to address in your risk-based audit plan. So the next component of mandatory guidance is Code of Ethics. Code of Ethics is an important document which provides the principles, rules, and expectations from an internal audit employee or the organization who is conducting the internal audit, because you may outsource the internal audit function. So Code of Ethics is very important, like this sort of minimum requirement, you can say, and it promotes the ethical culture in the profession. And the expectations are basically around covered by the principles of integrity, confidentiality, the competency, and objectivity. And then there are further rules which provides more guidance, more details about what is expected from the internal internal auditor, and there are implementation guides also which have further details about the internal audit, about the Code of Ethics. So the next important component of mandatory guidance, and the last one, is the standards. The international standards for professional practice of internal auditing. What is the purpose of internal auditing standards? The purpose is to guide adherence to the with the mandatory elements of the IPPF. Number two, provide a framework for performing and promoting a broad range of value-added internal audit services. Number three is to establish the basis for the evaluation of internal audit performance, because we know when we move forward, there are attribute standards and the performance standards. And to foster improved organizational processes and operations. Again, go back to the mission, and we are adding value and enhancing the value of the organization. Basically, the standard, together with the code of ethics, covers all the mandatory requirement or mandatory guidance of IPPF. Means if your internal audit function is demonstrating conformance with the standards and with code of ethics, means that you are effectively demonstrating the conformance with all the mandatory elements of IPPF. So the standards are basically categorized into two portions. The first component is the attribute standards, and the second, performance standards. The attribute standard, as the name suggests, emphasize on the attributes of the internal audit and internal audit function within the organization. These standards are basically numbered in the series of 1000, and the key areas covered by the attribute standards are the purpose, authority, and responsibility of internal audit, the internal audit charter, independence, objectivity, due professional care, direct interaction with the board, the role of chief audit executive, which is beyond the internal audit role, the impairment of independence, proficiency, quality assurance and improvement program. So these are some of the examples of the standards provided by the attribute standards, which is part of this the mandatory guidance. Performance standards. Performance standards describe the nature of internal audit and provide quality criteria to measure the performance. This is more on the operational sides. These standards are numbered in the series of 2000, and I'll read out some of the names of the standards, which can give you an understanding of what these performance standards are covering. Basically, managing the internal audit activity, planning or the risk-based audit plan, how you can develop the communication, approval, the internal audit activities plan, resource management, coordination and reliance, reporting to the senior management and the board, external service providers, risk management, the control or effective internal controls by evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness, engagement planning. So the first planning was the overall plan, risk-based plan, and this is relevant to the individual assignment. The engagement, resource allocation, work programs, performance, measurement, information collection, supervision of the engagement, how to communicate the results, monitoring the progress, and communicating the acceptance of risk. So these are some of the examples of the performance standards. So we discussed the mandatory guidance. The second part is the recommended guidance. The recommended guidance is either in the form of the implementation guide or the supplemental guide. Implementation guide actually provides guidance more on the code of ethics. We discussed when we were discussing the code of ethics. It provides additional details around the mandatory guidance and the core principles, for example, the independence, objectivity, proficiency, due professional care. The supplemental guidance covers many aspects like the internal audit strategy, journal best practices, GTACs, global technology audit guides, financial service practice guides, public sector practice guides, and other supplemental guides. So that covers the whole IPPF a summary of how many components are there and how it is comprised of. So hopefully the whole explanation of IPPF helped you in understanding how useful this document is. But again, there are more details we need to see because this is just a basic overview of IPPF. You will find more videos from me having more details about the standards, about the quality assurance improvement program, and how we can better utilize IPPF to establish an effective internal audit function.